Hi, welcome to the Women's Health Podcast. I'm Anthony Lowe, the physio detective.
And I'm Marika Hart from Herasphere. Together we interview leading authorities, we answer questions and share our thoughts to provide the general public with the best quality information that we can find on all aspects of women's health. Please remember that the materials and the content on this podcast are intended as general information and they're for entertainment purposes only.
They're not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Now sit back, grab your favourite beverage or do your thing and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the podcast, and we've got with us Vicki Webber. Vicki Webber is actually an old friend of mine. We met in 2013 where we had the same coach, and she has competed in 4 regionals. That's the Australian regionals, 2012, 13, 14, 15, placing as high as 4th in the team. You guys almost made it to the games in 2012. And Benny Mann is a physio friend of mine as well. He was on that team, right?
Yep.
So it's a really cool thing that you achieved there, and you've been doing the Open, and you only missed out by not that many places on making it to Masters last year, by the look of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, placing 35th in the world in your age group. So pretty badass. And I've always loved watching you move and how you approach your workouts, the stony steel face that you have, the determination, the grit, and the fact that you are similar in age to me. I am a bit older than you, but, you know, just it's so inspiring to see strong, powerful women out there doing these amazing things. So thank you very much for everything that you've done in CrossFit and, you know, staying in touch and all the rest of it. You are, you own an affiliate, Steel Coast CrossFit, and you also have a long history in the sport. So you've come across thousands of athletes in your time as a coach, as an athlete. And so we're really excited to have you here on the podcast because we want to hear how your journey has gone, particularly as you're a new mum again, having 4 kids. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself some more, fill in some of those details about what you've been doing, and let's go from there.
Yeah, so as you said, been competing in CrossFit I started in 2011, and prior to that I hadn't done any real lifting or anything like that. Firstly, I should say thanks for having me on. But yeah, so going back to that, so I started 2011, and that was my first introduction to lifting weight and really high intensity training. Prior to that, I just stuck pretty much to running, and that didn't really start until after my second baby, who is now 14 years old. So when I started the CrossFit training, I just had a passion for it straight away. Competition, really, I'm quite competitive. I didn't realize that at the time, but I am. It's certainly brought that out. But I think too, I used it as a bit of a getaway from, a bit of a break from children, to be honest, having 3. Went through a marriage breakup around 2016, which was my last year competing, and sort of went off the radar a little bit there, from competition and training, to be honest. And then last year really dug deep, and as you said, was keen to go masters, and got to Down Under, which was exciting to be back on that floor again. Also too, as an older athlete, I guess I really never saw myself as quite old.
Sorry, Vicki.
Older.
Just for those not in the CrossFit game, what's Down Under?
So Down Under CrossFit Champs is basically the old regionals. So regionals in the CrossFit world is a worldwide competition that you did online, and then from there, the top 30, I think. Oh, was it top 30? Yeah? I can't.
It used to be 45 and then it went to 30.
30, yeah, top 30 would go to the national level competition, which was, back then it was the Pacific region. Now CrossFit's changed in the last couple of years and they have sanctioned events. So there's about 10 or 12 a year, something like that. And the Down Under CrossFit Champs was basically, I wouldn't say it's replacing regionals, because regionals was an amazing thing to be able to achieve at the time. Sanctioned events, you've just got more opportunities, which is great, throughout the year. So yeah, we have 2 here. We've got one in Queensland, the Australian CrossFit Champs, and we've also got the Down Under, which was the one that I competed in May as an individual. Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. Good to be back out there on the floor.
Sorry, thank you for clarifying that.
That's all right. I kind of can't remember where I'm up to. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then this time last year, I fell pregnant with my 4th baby. So it's been a long time between my kids, and I think it's been a bit of a shock. I'm not going to lie. Physically, and I don't like to say this. I did, I have questioned this, but you don't bounce back the way that you used to, which I really find hard to believe. I don't like to believe it, I guess, because I feel so young, really, physically as well. So yeah, and that's where I'm at. Had this little bub, and she's challenging me the whole way. Don't worry about that.
How long ago did you open up Steel Coast CrossFit? Because you had another affiliate, but in between as well, right?
Yes. So I had Lake Macquarie, which we opened in, I think it was 2014. Sold that 2017 or end of 2016, and then opened Steel Coast 2000. Well, it was Body Depot, and then we rebranded to Steel Coast. So we've had that now for almost 2 years, maybe a bit over. Yeah, I love it. Great.
Anthony and I have talked a lot about sort of pregnancy and postnatal exercise. So you started CrossFit between your 2nd and 3rd, is that right?
No, I started CrossFit with after Mia. She would have been, it was 2011, she was 7, 8, 9, 10. So 4 years after I had Mia. Yes, my 3rd.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So this pregnancy was the first one, the most recent one that you did CrossFit through?
That's right, yeah. And I think for me now, I think comparatively, I was at my peak physical strength going into this pregnancy. So to have the baby and to come back out probably better than what I was prior to even starting CrossFit, obviously because of my strength, but feeling the weakest ever.
Your baseline
Does that make sense?
Your baseline changed.
Yeah. My baseline changed, whereas I don't remember feeling the things that I'm feeling now physically. Pelvic floor 100%. Like it's actually frightened me. I have to say. And now I realize I don't need to be like that. But yeah, when I first after the birth, it was probably my most traumatic birth as well. In everyone's birth is, mine definitely wasn't the worst that there's possibly out there, but for me, comparatively to my other 3, baby got stuck. But I was also the strongest I'd ever be, and I wonder if that played a part in her position within the uterus getting stuck. I don't know. Who knows? We'll never know. But it's the only thing that was different. And my 3 births prior were relatively normal. Baby came, no dramas. I had no trauma afterwards to my pelvic floor area. Yeah, whereas this time it was very different.
So
So
your
different.
recovery felt pretty straightforward after the first 3, and then
I
you
didn't
could
even
go
know
public
I'd
fit.
had a baby. I don't know. I was like, I came home from hospital that day, the same day after my third. I came home from hospital the same day, and I didn't even feel like I'd had a baby because I had an epidural. So I had a medicated birth with my my middle two. And yeah, so when all that wore off, I was like, oh, did I even push a baby out? Is that a bit graphic?
No, God, no, are you kidding?
And then this time around, my goodness, I felt like I'd been just put through a machine and washed around and then spat back out the other side. Like, it was incredible, the
Are
difference.
you happy to tell us a little bit more about that birth?
Yeah, sure. So it was still quite quick, like my others. Like, it wasn't a marathon effort. But my waters broke at 12 o'clock on the Wednesday. And that was the 26th of February. So the waters broke at 12:30 or something, lunchtime that day. No pain. She was 9 days late as well. So that was very different to my others. I was pretty much on the day that they were due. And that night, I had to go to hospital to check because we weren't sure if my waters had broke or not, because I was not sure. I thought because I've actually suffered through this through this pregnancy, I've struggled with my doing a wee, and can't control my bladder, and that started about 6 weeks, and I couldn't work out why, because I wasn't heavy or anything, it wasn't, but it never got worse through the pregnancy. It just stayed the same. It would be, I would find it really hard to control my bladder during working out and stuff like that. So I already had started that fear of, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be struggling with this in my recovery, or post baby. And then so I didn't know when my waters broke, I didn't know if I was just having trouble with my bladder. And then pain started about 11 o'clock that night, and I had really opted for as natural as I possibly could, because I'd had 2 medicated labours prior, but my first birth was unmedicated, and I had picked up quite a lot of fear around pain and what childbirth was. So with Frankie, my most recent, went into the bath and was really wanting to have the natural labour. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I remember my daughter, who was in there as a support person, said to me, "Mum, you're going to have the baby at the same time as what we've all been born at," because I've always had my babies around 2 a.m. It was really strange. And I remember looking at the clock thinking everything was going beautifully, and the pain really in my mind, the contractions and the pain of childbirth, it was a 7 or an 8. Like, the whole experience was amazing, and nothing to be fearful of, now that I realise, until she got stuck. And I could tell that she was stuck in my pelvis because of the discomfort I was feeling through the hip bones. So that must have been where she was stuck. So then we had to get out the bath, and that's when everything changed. So I'd really managed my the intensity of the contractions through breathing and mindset. And the midwife checked me, and she said, "Oh, you're only 7 centimeters dilated." But because of the way she was laying with the side of her head, she'd only, pushed the cervix out 7 centimeters. So I still had another 3 to go. And they said, "You're going to have to stop pushing now, because the cervix is swollen and it won't keep coming back." So with that, the fear set in then. So there was talks of cesareans, and the baby was stuck, and her heart rate was dropping, and you've got this overwhelming urge to push a baby out, because that's what your body's telling you, but your doctors or your midwife, or the doctors had been in by this stage, said you need to stop pushing. So it just became a shambles. And I ended up having an epidural because the pain had gone from a 7, which I was managing quite well, to about a 15. That's how it felt at the time. So had the epidural, and then my heart rate and the baby's heart rate started to really drop then. So they knew she was in not a great position. So I was getting the whole rolling over to try to move her a little bit. They believed that she might have been on her cord. So that was what was causing the drop in the heart rate. The registrar came on and she checked me, and having a cesarean, not that I have anything against that, but for me, in my mind, I was frightened because I'd never had it before. And I'd had 3 natural deliveries before with no problems. So in my mind, I'm thinking, why for my last, they say your last pregnant, your last, but as the births go on, they get easier, they say. Anyway, it wasn't the case. So after she checked me, she said she did a bit of manipulation. I don't know what she did, but whatever it was, it worked. And she said, you're going to have a natural delivery. It wasn't a great pushing out though. She got stuck again. And I had to do a lot of bearing down in my bottom, like pushing so hard. I had my friend there as a support person who is a midwife, and she spoke to me afterwards about it. And she said the pushing that I was doing was just incredible to try to get this baby out. And she moved down, but then got stuck in the passage on the way out, that little bend. And they said, then we're going to have to use a ventouse. So they suctioned her out. So I believe, and I'm not sure if this is true, but from what my midwife was telling me, she said because of the pulling as well as the pushing, there was just so much force happening through down there that afterwards it was so swollen. I couldn't walk, and I had never experienced this before. Every time I got up, I'd need to hold my bottom because it felt like my insides were coming out. And it was really swollen, and it wasn't, I had stitches as well. I had 3 stitches, a labial tear, and they were nothing. I didn't have any feeling, it wasn't painful, but my back passage, my goodness. And so recovery was about, for that swelling to go down would have been about 7 days. And every time I stood up, I had to hold my bottom to walk, to laugh, to cough. It wasn't a great feeling. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot to go through, Vicki. And the amount of, well, not only that, but like all your previous experiences were very different. And even having the transition from everything's under control to you used the word shambles. It felt like things fell apart for you both mentally and physically, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and
100%.
there was a whole bunch of things going on. How did it go in the time after that? You've taken us to that first week. What happened when you left hospital and went home?
So so we had Frankie at 10:30 in the morning, and we were home by 11:30 that night. I chose to. So I had a plan. I never plan anything in my life. Like, I'm kind of a bit of a fly by the seat of my pants. And this particular time, being my 4th, knowing that I'm never going to do this again, and being older, because I was so young when I had my other babies, I really wanted to appreciate everything. I wanted to, it sounds like I didn't appreciate my other kids, but it was such I was so young and naive. I had no idea about birthing, the amount of information out there about childbirth and or just anything in general because of social media, it's so easy to access. So I felt very naive having my children, my other three, because I knew nothing. I just went in there. I let the obstetrician tell me what was going to happen. Whereas this time around, I wanted as natural birth as I could. I wanted to. I'd been advised to, recovery's better, all those things, which I know, I did know that. But I wanted to, I had this plan and I wanted to deliver naturally, and I wanted to, have delayed cord clamping and deliver the placenta by myself, and all those, and keep her attached until the placenta was delivered. I didn't want to have the hormone to make the placenta come, and all these things. So it was, for the first time in my life, I actually had a bit of an idea of how I wanted things to play out. Well, it didn't happen. So it was really quite interesting how I, and my recovery, I had this plan of, I'll be back into training. I love CrossFit so much. I don't want to be without that. I'll be coaching in the gym, baby will be 4 weeks. She'll be sleeping in the corner, and none of it happened. And so it's been sort of one thing after another. So when I did get, the one thing that did go to plan was I wanted to be home. That I wanted to be at home to recover. And so got home that night, and it was really nice to be home. There wasn't really anything too crazy, but it fast forward to say 4 weeks on, and the feeling of so I had bladder control. I couldn't cut a wee off, and that in my mind was already starting to concern me, because I feel like I had no control whatsoever there. I hadn't had any accidents, like I hadn't wet myself or anything like that. But the thing that really did play on my mind was my back passage. And as soon as I felt like I needed to do a number 2, it was there. And I felt like I never had the feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it in my pants. It was never that, but it was just a really heavy feeling. And so then I went to my checkup at 6 weeks to my GP, and she gave me an internal, as they do, to make sure everything's going okay. And she wanted to check my pelvic floor, and she said to me, okay, just squeeze down. And I couldn't do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I've really prided myself on how my pelvic floor is after 3 children, and I've got nothing, just couldn't even. And she's like, no, don't squeeze your bottom, don't use your core, or what I had of a core, because I don't really have much of that either at the moment. But I had nothing. And so you're just constantly with that pre-pregnancy and how strong I felt in my body to how I was recovering, and thinking, okay, well, I really want to get back to training. How on earth am I going to be able to do anything without either doing a number 2 or doing a number 1, And so then I started, about the 7-week mark, I started to do some light movement, which was a lot later on in the recovery than what I had anticipated. I honestly thought that I could start moving again, because mentally I felt okay and I was getting sleep.
I just jump in, Vicki?
Yeah,
when the doctor did the assessment, apart from saying your pelvic floor is weak, was there any other information or recommendations at that point?
No.
Okay. So she just said, you're a bit weak, work on your pelvic floor.
Yeah, she just said, you just need to be mindful of that. And I think too, because she knew of my fitness background as well, I guess maybe she didn't sort of, because, we'd been talking about what I did and, all that stuff, like my history of exercise and stuff. So I think that was why there wasn't really much, oh, you should probably go and see a pelvic floor specialist, or, she just said, just do what
she knew that you were sort of in the fitness industry, that you were knowledgeable, that you had good awareness of your body and things like that.
Yes. And so started exercising, and I couldn't do much without wetting my pants. and I still had that heavy feeling in my bottom. Unless I'd been to the toilet and emptied my bowel prior to this. Sorry, it's getting a little bit graphic, but yeah, if I went to the toilet, emptied my bowel, and did a wee, I could come and start moving a little bit, but I would still wet myself during training of light movement, because I was scaling everything. I also I kind of my separation was that's never really been a concern for me, like the I can never pronounce it,
Diastasis.
That's it. That has never been a concern for me, because I was very unaware of it with my last 3, so I don't really know what it was like. And I do remember doing Pilates and things like that up until about 26 weeks, 28 weeks, when I couldn't lay on my back anymore. So that's when I stopped during pregnancy. I was a lot more cautious this time, being pregnant and training, and being mindful of what I can do core wise. But that was never my major concern. It was always my pelvic floor. And so started to do the exercise, and finally it just kept playing on my mind. I thought, I don't feel like this is getting better. And then 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I can't remember, I decided to reach out to a physio, a women's health specialist, physio, and did a Zoom session. And I was, at that point I was very fearful. I thought that I was going to need surgery of a prolapsed bowel or something like that. I'd kind of come to the conclusion that must have been what was going on for me. And worked with him, and I've never looked back. I kind of feel like at the time when we were working on, I think for me, well, being an athlete, you're always trying to overachieve and compete and be better than you were, an hour ago. It's just, you can't help it. And I think what I've realized is, with my pelvic floor, I was just going like, squeeze it together as tight as I possibly can. And thankfully I know how to lift. So I didn't have to, it probably wasn't I shouldn't be thankful for that, because if I wasn't so focused on my pelvic floor, maybe I wouldn't have been having all the accidents that I was, because I'd be too worried about what I was doing with the barbell. But because I move a barbell so much, with so much confidence, that's just second nature. So I had all the focus on my pelvic floor, and constantly in my mind going, oh my goodness, I'm going to wet myself any minute now. This is going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Quick, I've got to clench it so tight. Oh, I've wet myself. That's not what So then with my appointment that I had, talking about...
Sorry, Vicki. Before we get on, that's really recent, right? The last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
When did you have the baby?
So I had the baby on the 27th of February. So she's 12 weeks today.
That's my birthday.
Yeah, actually.
I didn't realise your baby was so young. So recent.
So she's only 12 weeks old. 12 weeks yesterday.
I thought this was like going back like last year or something. Okay.
No. Sorry.
You're fresh.
Yeah, it's so fresh. So, maybe I'm probably being a bit dramatic, but I just want to be, you have this, like I said to you, I had a plan. I was going to be training by now, and I was going to be, I always knew it was going to take time to come back, but I didn't expect to have the
feelings, those symptoms. Yeah.
Those feelings around my pelvic floor. Yeah.
And have you had an internal examination with a pelvic health physio? Like, has anyone?
No, I haven't.
Checked for prolapse or done the strength?
Not.
Yep. Okay.
Not yet. I have been. It's been advised to go to one, but at the same time, since my appointment recently with the physio, just by going through how to actually activate my pelvic floor, it's almost like, and look, jump in if I'm wrong here, I feel like my brain was scrambled. I feel like there was some kind of voodoo played on me, because it's like there was a part there we were working on at the very beginning. We were talking about how to activate and I was getting told to, do it 100%, back it off 50%. Now I want you to do it 25% of that 50%. And in my mind, I'm going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing something, but I just don't know. And then as soon as we finished that, and then I was told to zip it up. So back passage through to the front, and then back it off 50%. And it was like an epiphany. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started moving, we started using that method, and I lifted weight, and I've been doing it ever since. And I honestly I've had a few little ones where I've wet myself, but not great. I think it's just a feeling. I don't believe that I've actually wet myself, when I go to the toilet afterwards, but you have that sensation of that's what it feels like. And I've only had that a handful of times, and it seems to be when I'm focusing on it, which is what we've discovered. I focus on it too much,
So, because we see this a lot in the postnatal population, when there's a lot of fear and anxiety, and if you feel or have been told that things are coming out, consciously, some people consciously are really activating their pelvic floor and squeezing the shit out of it, basically, in an attempt to hold everything in. Or for some women, it's almost more like very subconsciously that it's activating, that there's just not even that awareness. Do you think on reflection that was the case for you, that it was just like, if I don't contract my pelvic floor and hold everything in, shit's going to fall out and I'm going to be in big trouble? Absolutely.
Yeah, because of the fear, like that post 2 weeks after having her, I honestly felt like my insides were going to come out. I really did. It was like nothing I've ever experienced before. The swelling, like after I had my first baby, I had her vaginally as well. It was, first baby, I think everything, there is swelling there, but it was gone within a couple of days. Do you know what I mean? But this time around, it was the whole way through. It was like that whole area was just, I couldn't even bring myself to look what had happened down there. It just felt not good at all. And so I think prior to being pregnant this fourth time, I've never, maybe subconsciously, as you said, I've always been quite active with my pelvic floor and maybe not noticed what I've never had problems jumping on a trampoline or doing double unders or anything. Like I said, I prided myself on my pelvic floor after 3 children. But this time around, I think there has been so much fear and anxiety around, oh my gosh, have I done serious damage, that when I'm training now, it's the first thing I think about. I'm still thinking about it, when I do pick up a barbell. But what I've noticed, the more in my mind, I relax. One of the things that was suggested was put pressure on your whole body. I think that's what was said. Put the pressure on your whole body, rather than one place, if that makes sense.
Spread the load.
That's right. That's it. Spread the load around your whole body. And so when I'm not thinking that's when I find I might have a little, oh gosh. And then I'll relax a little bit, spread the load, and then I'm good again.
What's your current? Oh, sorry, Anthony, you're gonna.
No, you go, Marika.
I just want to ask, what does a workout look like for you at the moment? So
I'm not. I've gone to, like, do you mean like what am I modifying or what am I doing as in load and volume or?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I'm at 60% of my previous strength. My back squatting is way below what I can do, but that's never been great for me anyway. I'm also, I would have to say I've been quite cautious too, because I'm having I think the pregnancy hormones, the breastfeeding hormones, because I'm still feeding. I'm having a bit of instability in my pelvis as well. So I'm struggling a little bit with a hip problem, but nothing major. It's just there. So I've had to back off weight anyway for that reason. But like yesterday, I think I did a 67 kilo power clean and jerk, which is getting up there for me. And what I found was it's not actually getting the weight into the finished position. It's because I've had to do everything touch and go because I'm inside at the garage and I don't want to wake the baby. When I bring it down into my hips, that's when I feel like I'm really overdoing my pelvic floor, because I'm tense everywhere, if that makes sense. But the volume's definitely nowhere near, because I'm trying to not teeter on that huge fatigue. Strength's probably about 60%. And I'm just trying to be patient. That was the advice that I was given. Just be patient and know that but I also do push to see where I'm at. And if I might have a little bit of a feeling of, oh my gosh, I feel like I've wet myself, I'll back it off a bit. So I'm not being overly cautious, because I still want to test the boundaries to see if I am improving, but I am knowing what my limit is and backing it back from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's what I'm finding interesting about your story, Vicki, and what I really like hearing from you is just how different your first three births were and how different this one is, because, there's a lot of high level CrossFitters who are pregnant at the moment, the OG type people around when we started, and some of them are going to have great experiences, some of them are just going to have really difficult experiences, and how can we draw conclusions? Like from your story, for example, you're wondering, is it because I'm a lot stronger now, that's why she got stuck? But then also, is her head circumference different because your previous pregnancies were with a different partner? Do you know what I mean? And then you're older too. So how old is your eldest now?
She's 19.
Right? And the third one, I think, is, how old's your third one? 14?
13.
13? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like a 13-year difference between your last pregnancy and this pregnancy. So there's this age difference as well. And lots of women are having that as well. That's why I think your story is so valuable and fascinating, because sharing those experiences and being really aware and being highly competitive and being highly accomplished. And, you started a gym. You started a gym and then you would have, got pregnant like within a year or so of a new business, So there was a lot of things going on, which is really valuable from your story. It's great that you got the advice to seek an internal assessment. Both Marika and I are fully supportive of that kind of advice, particularly since you want to lift so heavy, and understanding what went on is so important. You're a coach and you've coached people for a long time now. What has been your experience? We're not throwing people under the bus. Just in general, we also know that it comes from their perceptions. Over the years, you've been coaching nearly 10 years, I think. What has your experience been about the whole, get back from pregnancy, not just from pelvic floor physios, but also from CrossFit, also from other coaches, other influencers, stuff you see on the internet. Can you tell us, as a coach, how what has been filtered through in your experience?
So if I'm 100% honest, I have only really noticed. I feel like it's not taboo. Gosh, that's probably not the right word, but I think there's a lot of women are very frightened to share or to even express that that's what's happening for them. And it's only been in the last couple of years, because at our gym personally, we've had a few pregnancies just in the last couple of years. And I guess too, just probably being that little bit older and maybe people feel comfortable now. It's more talked about these last few years as well. Well, that's how I feel anyway. Like, I feel there's been a lot about it in social media circles, about wetting yourself when you do double unders. And so it's definitely something that is a lot more common than what I first thought. And there is so much fear around it, though. Like, from the people that I have worked with, I look, I will never, advise, because that's out of my realm. At the same time, you still want to try. You want to see what your limit is without really pushing it's that whole, when people have surgery or they get, they've got a problem, first thing they do is cut exercise. Well, in my mind, as someone that has used exercise so much, and it is definitely out of my field, it's no, we want to keep moving. We will modify, we make it so that you can still do this. You're not causing any injury or furthering injury, but to keep moving is so important, because we become sedentary, and then that's when all the issues become heightened and recovery slower. And we all know that now. I think it's quite commonly spoke about through health professionals that moving is the best medicine, and diet and all those sorts of things. But it's, women are just so they're just so frightened to do, and I get it now. Like, I can see why people would be cautious to try that jump over a flat bar, or whatever, to get started. And it's just a real big fear. Now, one of the girls that was pregnant at the same time as me, she's been advised from her GP to not do anything, and she had her baby a week after me. And when I spoke to her, she said, I have so much fear that I am scared to even pick up my washing basket to go up and hang the washing up on the line. I'm like, well, this is, it's, you need to go and see someone, that's other than your GP. So I think it's definitely something that's getting spoke about a lot more commonly, and people being a lot more confident in talking about it, I guess. But it doesn't solve the issue that we have at hand, which is people are fearful to actually action it. Does that make sense?
And I think it's such a valuable story, Vicki, and this is one of the reasons why Anthony and I wanted you to talk to us, is because sharing your personal experience, for a starter, is so valuable, but also as a coach. Do you feel that it's changed the way you coach or work with women? I know you've only been back for a short period of time, but having this experience, does it? How has that impacted how you communicate with people, interact? Because I'm just going to say, from my perspective, when I went to a CrossFit gym a couple of years ago, I was going to say. And when you do that, I don't know, is that a standard thing when the first time you go and you do that test, when you go for a run and then you jump on the bike and you lift some weight? I don't know, there's some kind of...
It's all, every gym has a different philosophy around how they introduce CrossFit to people.
Gotcha. Because I just remember that first time going, and as a 40-plus-year-old woman who has had 2 vaginal births, and I went in and was like, right, you have to do this, and this is what you do. And it's like, no modifications, no screening. And even me, who works as a pelvic health physio, was like, I don't know that I want to tell you as a 20-year-old trainer that I do have prolapse, I don't have incontinence, but I actually, some of those things. So I just modified for myself because I know what I can do. And as a physio, I feel confident with that. But I was thinking, when I left, I thought, that's a bit shit. Because there was no even, okay, if you can't do this, and if you can't do this, here is a scaled version. And, it left me feeling a bit there.
Yeah, not great. Yeah. So every gym is different in the way they, screen at the start. I have to be honest, we do the whole medical history and stuff like that. I think I think one of the benefits for our particular gym is we have myself, who's the head coach, who only till when I was pregnant did I step away and not be there as much. But prior to that, I've been the main person that is always there when we have new people, myself or my partner. Brendan, we always make sure if we've got someone new coming to the gym that we're always there to greet and to talk through how our gym works. Whether this is right or not, my belief is, and I know not everyone is like me, and that's a big thing that I've noticed as well personally, starting to coach people, is I could never understand, like, I have to step out of my whole athlete, I'm, competitive athlete, to someone who has never done a single thing. That's a challenge in itself as a coach, because you're at a certain level in your fitness and your training. You've been doing it for so long, and the gym is your safe place. Someone who's never experienced that or training or anything comes into a place that, it's very hard to step out of your own personal mindset of, what it's like. So, I think over the years of experience coaching, you become quite aware of this. Even more aware now since I've been pregnant and wet myself. I was like, wow, this is a big thing. I think being older, mature, a female, talking to, say, yourself, if you were to come into the gym, I feel like people, when you start the conversation of, I always make sure that it's modified, and I'm actually with that person during their first experience in our gym, walking them through everything, every step of the way. That's how we do it. A lot of the gyms, there's other gyms that will do, those first few lessons more like a PT session. Like, everyone's different. But for me, I've always been a believer of get them in to experience what a CrossFit class is, but let them know that you're there, you're modifying them to just getting them moving, basically. And it might include a gate run, it's air squats, it's basic movements to see where they're at, basically.
Yeah, and one of the great things that I know that you're good at, and that lots of people, around the world are great at, is making things modifiable to suit. And 100%. It can be as simple as a question, particularly for a new person: do you feel comfortable doing this? We have options for you. Because, absolutely. I don't think I've met a CrossFit coach that a CrossFit trainer, let's use the proper terms, right? I don't think I've met anybody that hasn't been able to give a range of options, particularly when asked. And so, when somebody new walks in, and I think you perfectly described, the experience that you have to go through as being somebody who's so experienced, to then realize for some people it's just so intimidating and foreign and Like they're not going to speak up. Whereas if you go into a gym, let's just say you go visit overseas because we live in fairyland at the moment and you can do that.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
like if you go visit somewhere and they did something, you'd be like, nah. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd speak
Yeah,
up for yourself because you feel like you
yeah,
can.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
some people just don't even know that they can speak up,
No.
and like just as simple as asking some simple questions like that can be so helpful for people.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
really, really
Get
important.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's been fantastic talking to you about all of these things, Vicky, and your experiences. Um, in terms of what you would love other people who are listening, so we've got health
Hmm.
professionals, pelvic floor physios, we've got fitness professionals, trainers, coaches, and the general public as well. What would be some of the things that you would love for them to get from your experiences, particularly since you've been, you know, on this journey so clearly yourself recently?
Yeah. So for me, I peace of mind was talking to my physio, and spending a lot of time with him, which was great. And I had such fear around, um, you know, what was going on for me. I just wanted peace of mind. I wanted to be encouraged, and I wanted to be told it's going to be okay. We can. What is it you want to achieve? I didn't want to be told no, you can't do this, because to be honest with you, that would have been just devastating. That would have just ruined my plans, and they were already half ruined. Um, yeah, it was. It's funny. It's amazing what the mind can do, and fear will do to your body physically. And you need support. You need, you know, I know sometimes you can't have the answers, um, and sometimes some people, you know, if there was a need for surgery, I get it. But at the same time, we, you know, especially in my situation, because exercise is such a huge part of my life. If I was told that I couldn't do that, then that would have been just devastating. So the fact that I was supported, the fact that I was, yeah, had been told, you know, we can, whatever happens, we can work through this, and we'll do what we can to get you back to. Obviously, I know that my body is never going to be the same again, because that's what happens when you have children. But I know I can be strong again, you know, physically strong, and I still, you know, I will get to back to where I was, um, however that however long it takes. Yeah, be patient, and keep moving. Don't just stop because you know there's a little hiccup in the road. I guess that's how I think.
Oh, that's a great summary there, Vicky. And I think you know, clinically, Anthony and I we hear these stories a lot from people,
Mm.
and actually, as soon as they start moving and relaxing into movement and
Mm.
breathing and being in those
Mhm.
positive environments where they're with their
Mm.
friends and they're doing things that they
Yeah.
enjoy and they get those endorphins, and suddenly the focus comes away from that area and the
Yes.
obsessively thinking about it and focusing on it,
Yes.
and some of those symptoms actually start to calm down. And
It's
so I think
fascinating.
you're preaching to the choir and in that one. And I love also that you mentioned about all the sort of the other physical benefits of exercise. And if
Mm.
people are so scared to even go for a walk, I mean, where's the cardiovascular benefits? And
That's
you know,
right.
in a time where type 2 diabetes, you know, in Australia as well as in the States, you know, they're going through the roof, and
Yeah.
depression and anxiety and all these
Yeah.
other, you know, metabolic problems. And so for all of us, we're really trying to encourage people to keep moving in whatever way brings them
Mm.
joy, and whether that is, you know,
Yeah.
CrossFit or running. And, you know, who are
Yeah.
we to say you can't, don't do any of this, because actually that message could potentially cause far more health devastation than you know, some leaking and other things. So it's a really good
Absolutely.
message. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. I think we're definitely on board with that. We
Yeah.
are going to wind up because we all have meetings in five
Sure.
minutes. Just want to say, first of all, a massive thank you, Vicki, for sharing her story. And as a bit of a summary, you've talked about your previous pregnancies and childbirths, your history within CrossFit and the gyms that you have set up, boxes that you set up along the way. And then those many years later, having that fourth pregnancy, different partner, different age, obviously. But at that time, you were at your fittest and healthiest, but the birth experience itself was very different. And thank you for sharing that with us. And I know that's not always an easy thing to reflect on. But that more recent pregnancy and birth experience, and then the recovery afterwards, and how, there was all that swelling and heaviness and that feeling in your bottom all the time, feeling like things were going to come out. And then as soon as you started exercising, leaking, more heaviness in the bottom. And then having that experience with the physiotherapist in our online consult, and learning more about your body and feeling like, actually, I'm tightening everything. And you were starting to learn within your body what was that right amount of contraction that actually you needed, and maybe it was overcooking a bit. And now, you're on that next part of the journey, and you're only 12 weeks, but there's hope on the horizon, and there's that sensation like, my life is not over. I've got plans, and I'm going to be able to move towards them, and I just need to be a little bit patient and kind to myself. Because at 12 weeks, we know that the distance between the two sides of the levator muscles, they're still recovering, and the abdominal wall is still recovering, and all these things, the hormonal changes with breastfeeding, and you're still at an early part of your journey. It sounds like you're well on the way though to a more positive outcome.
Which is just all you ever want to hear, right?
Did I summarize that okay, Anthony?
I think it was a fantastic summary. I'm looking forward to hearing maybe a part 2 from you, Vicki, in 6 months or a year. You're going to you're going to find a pelvic health physio to get that internal check. From the sounds of it, it sounds like you're being sensible and not pushing your limits.
No.
It sounds like, you're developing that team around you, and you're more sensitive and aware of being able to help those athletes in your gym to be able to support them as well. So it sounds like a fantastic future, and thank you for sharing your story with us. It's been a great thing, and for being vulnerable and sharing, and the lessons that you're taking forwards is fantastic. And I know that there are lots of women who have told, at least both Marika and I, very, very similar stories, very similar things. And that message of hope, and having hope and support, even though things may be different, just having that hope and support is so important. And how fearful you were until you had that support and information to make the decisions that you want to make. It's fantastic.
Totally.
Awesome. Thank you very
so
much.
We'll see you in 6 months.
We'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love that.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Well, that's it for this episode. Be sure to hit like if you enjoyed the episode, and leave any comments or questions below. We'd really like to hear from you.
If you haven't already hit subscribe, please do so now so that you can be kept notified when we release our next episode.
Otherwise, thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you back with us for another episode of the Women's Health Podcast.